In the complex world of international trade, there's a principle that always holds true: cause and effect. When one country makes a move, whether it's imposing tariffs or economic sanctions, it inevitably triggers a response from the other. This principle applies not just to personal relationships, but to global politics as well. Right now, the global economy is in the midst of a serious game of tit-for-tat, especially between the United States and China. What we're witnessing is a series of economic actions and reactions that are reshaping the future of the automotive industry, not just in the US, but across the world. For years, the United States has held a dominant position in the global market. It has been the undisputed leader in many industries, including automobile manufacturing. But the tides are changing. In recent years, China has emerged as a formidable force, not just in terms of its manufacturing capabilities, but also in its technological advancements. The China of the 1990s and 2010s is not the same as the China we see today. This is a nation that has built itself into the world's largest manufacturing and industrial powerhouse. In fact, China has now surpassed the United States in a variety of industries, including the automobile sector, and it's about to change the game entirely. The United States made the decision to impose a 10% tax on goods imported from China, believing that this move would give the country an upper hand in the trade war. However, what's happening now is far from what anyone expected. China has retaliated in a major way, slapping a 10% tariff on US-made automobiles. And when you factor in the existing 15% tariff, the total tax on American vehicles is now a whopping 25%. For US automakers like GM, Ford, and Mercedes, this spells trouble. Their ability to remain competitive in the largest consumer market for automobiles is now at serious risk. But this isn't just about tariffs. It's about the fundamental economic realities that shape the global automotive market. The cost of manufacturing a vehicle in the United States is far higher than it is in China. This isn't a small difference either. The gap is substantial. Manufacturing costs in China are far lower due to several factors: cheaper labor, more efficient supply networks, and lower energy costs. Not to mention, China has invested heavily in automation and robotics, streamlining its production processes. This has allowed Chinese manufacturers to produce world-class vehicles at a fraction of the cost of their Western counterparts. And let's not forget about China's electric vehicle market, which is surging ahead at breakneck speed. For example, the manufacturing process of a Chinese electric vehicle is highly automated, featuring cutting-edge robotic technologies. This is not an isolated case. It's a standard practice in Chinese factories. With their highly efficient supply chains and automated production lines, Chinese companies are able to produce electric cars at a fraction of the cost it takes to manufacture gasoline-powered vehicles in the US. This has given China a massive advantage in the global automobile market. On the other hand, the US is stuck in the past, relying on outdated production methods and high labor costs. The writing is on the wall. China is leading the charge when it comes to the future of transportation. When we look at the larger picture, it's clear that Trump's trade policies are backfiring. His decision to impose tariffs on Chinese goods was intended to level the playing field, but it has instead had the opposite effect. The US is now facing a situation where its car manufacturers are being squeezed from all sides. The 10% tariff on American-made cars is only one piece of the puzzle. There's also the issue of rising costs in steel and aluminum, which are crucial components in car manufacturing. Trump's global steel tariffs, which impose a 25% tax on steel imports from countries like Japan, Canada, and Germany, have made it more expensive to build cars in the United States. Here's the problem. US automakers rely heavily on steel imports to build their vehicles. In 2024, the US imported over $23 billion worth of steel. But now, with tariffs in place, US manufacturers will be forced to pay significantly more for steel. This could lead to an increase in the overall cost of producing cars in the US. And if automakers try to source steel from domestic suppliers, the prices could rise even higher. The reality is that cars in the United States are about to become much more expensive, and this is going to affect not just the manufacturers, but also the consumers. In 2025, Ford, for example, is expected to see a significant drop in earnings, over $2 billion according to some projections. Their stock price has already taken a hit, dropping by 19% last year. Quality concerns are also mounting, which is only adding to the pressure. Ford and other US automakers will face squeezed profit margins, and exports to China are likely to shrink dramatically. This, in turn, will lead to a reduction in the number of jobs in the American automotive sector, as the loss of international sales puts manufacturers under intense financial pressure. But it's not just about the US. Let's talk about China for a moment. China's economy has reached a point where it can weather these kinds of storms. Their automotive industry is thriving, with companies like BYD and NIO leading the charge in the electric vehicle sector. And they're not just competing with Western automakers, they're dominating the market. Last year, China's automobile industry produced over 22 million cars, more than any other country in the world. What's more, China's domestic market is booming, and it's becoming increasingly difficult for U.S. automakers to carve out a niche. China is also working on cutting-edge technologies that will make their cars even more appealing to consumers worldwide. For example, BYD is integrating AI and smart driving systems into their vehicles. This is exactly the kind of innovation that the West is struggling to keep up with. While U.S. automakers are still trying to figure out how to cut costs and improve efficiency, China is already thinking about the next generation of cars that are smarter, greener, and more affordable. The truth is, China's dominance in the automotive sector is growing, and there's little the U.S. can do to stop it. The 25% tariffs on steel and the 10% tariffs on U.S. cars are just the beginning. China is positioning itself as the world's leading car producer, and the U.S. is falling behind. The Chinese government has done an excellent job of shielding its economy from the effects of U.S. tariffs. They've created a self-sustaining ecosystem that allows them to produce and sell vehicles at prices that U.S. automakers simply can't compete with. But let's zoom out and consider the broader implications of these trade wars. The biggest losers in this situation are the consumers. In the end, it's the average American consumer who will feel the brunt of these decisions. The trade war and the resulting tariffs are driving up the cost of everything, from groceries to gas, and now, cars. The impact on household budgets is going to be significant. A 25% tariff on steel could increase the cost of a new car by up to $1,500. And for many American families, that's a huge burden. For comparison, $1,500 is roughly the amount many people save in a month. This is money they could have used for other essential expenses, but now it will be spent on something they can't avoid, paying more for the same car. On top of this, used car prices have already gone up by 40% since 2020. Maintenance and repair costs have risen by 30%, and car insurance premiums have climbed by 29%. Even the cost of basic repairs, like replacing a car gasket, has shot up by 20%. All of these increases are putting a strain on American households, and it's only going to get worse. And it's not just about the car industry. The entire manufacturing sector in the U.S. is facing an uphill battle. The tariffs on steel and aluminum, coupled with China's retaliatory tariffs, are affecting businesses across the board. U.S. manufacturers are being forced to pay more for the raw materials they need to produce goods, and this will ultimately lead to higher prices for consumers. Looking ahead, it's clear that Trump's trade war isn't just a simple issue of tariffs. It's a complex web of consequences that are playing out in real time. The U.S. is facing a crisis in its automotive industry, and the ripple effects are being felt across the global economy. Will us automakers survive this? It's hard to say. But one thing is certain. If things continue down this path, consumers will feel the pain, and the U.S. economy will bear the brunt of these trade policies. As we watch this economic drama unfold, we must ask ourselves, will the U.S. be able to turn things around? Or is this the beginning of the end for its automotive industry? Only time will tell. But one thing is clear. The stakes are high, and the consequences of these trade decisions will be felt for years to come. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over. And in the meantime, let us know what you think. How do you see the future of the U.S. automotive industry? And how will China's retaliation shape the global market? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.